Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adriana.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are Uplifting Positive Stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
And welcome to May.
Yes, finally starting to get warm here.
I'm saying this with the hopeful optimism that it is here in fall and not random snow belts. But
yes, it's true. We sometimes
I say
get
that with
snow
hopeful
in May.
optimism.
The day after our wedding in May, which is mid-May, it snowed.
It did.
So
we weren't here though.
we were in Florida at
the
that
time.
point. But yeah, still. So it could happen. Hopefully it's nice and warm. But with that, today's theme is all about being compassionate with yourself. And that is kind of self-explanatory, I feel. I feel like we all sometimes are our own worst critics. Sometimes the voices in our heads aren't kind to us. When situations are difficult or when we're struggling with something, sometimes we aren't always the nicest to ourselves.
Ours specifically are very bad.
Yes, we struggle with
So we
this.
are speaking from
So I think
self-experience.
this will have some interesting stories, not always like right off the bat positive, but have some really interesting takes from Redditors that really helped people out in these situations to have a more positive perspective and to be a little kinder to themselves and learning how to go forward and do things a little differently or think about things a little bit differently in a way to be more positive in the future. So yeah, I'm excited to have some good discussions today. They're going to be interesting stories. Starting off with a Best of Redditor Updates post. This one is originally from True Off My Chest, and the title is, I don't like my new baby, ... at all.
Oh.
Yeah, like I said, not always inherently positive to start.
I feel like
we're going to
this
have some interesting
could
things.
range from like dark and really sad to kind of funny. Like I could see that being like a jokester, like my baby's so mean and that, you know.
So here we
Hopefully,
go.
it's not too bad.
No. Here we go. I, 30 female, recently had a baby. This is my second child and my first child with my husband, 31 male. I thought I'd love this baby with all my heart, considering my husband and I have an insanely wonderful relationship. He has also taken in my first child like his own, and we have a perfect family. But truthfully, I can't stand this baby. My firstborn is perfect in my eyes. Clever, beautiful, well-behaved. I love spending time with her. She is my soulmate of babies. Even as a newborn, I absolutely adored her. This baby, another girl, just ain't it. Even the pregnancy was terrible. The childbirth was terrible. Everything about her is just awful. She cries nonstop. She's not as cute as my firstborn. She spends all of her awake time being ticked off. She's 8 weeks old, and I spend my days just waiting for my husband to get home so I can give her to him. I haven't told him about this either because this is his only baby. I'm sure in his eyes, she's a perfect little angel. Of course, I'll never act on anything. Anytime she cries, I respond. I love on her, talk to her, treat her just as I would my firstborn. Even when nobody is around, I love on this baby the way a baby needs to be loved. Smiles, kind voices, cuddles, kisses, everything. I'm just so over this kid. Maybe if I could spend 5 minutes of my time with her without her screaming in my face, maybe I could bond. Even when she's not crying, she just ignores me. I hate everything about this, and I really don't care for this baby, and I'll take this secret to the grave with me, but I really wish my heart had room for this kid. Edit below. I wasn't expecting this to blow up. I will post an update in a few months, hopefully a positive one. A few notes, though. Before jumping to a poor baby, terrible mother crap, please do research. This is not uncommon for a mom to not bond. I'm just the ballsy one to say it on a Reddit thread on a throwaway account. She is not abused. She is the light of my husband's life. She is always in our arms. Her big sister is obsessed and absolutely adores her baby sister. If anything, I spent all my waking hours trying to bond with her, so this little one gets extra cuddles and attention. I don't hate the baby, I just don't like her. I don't wish anything bad on her. For those asking, no, we have absolutely no support. No friends, no family, as this is a new city for us. I haven't even slept in my own bed since her birth, as my husband works 60 hours a week and he can't function with baby waking up. I haven't had a 4-hour-long sleep since her birth. I haven't been able to cook a meal in 8 weeks. I'm lucky if I get a 10-minute shower. Yes, I'm in therapy, been working with a doctor for postpartum depression. Yes, baby is seeing a doctor for possible reflux issues / milk allergy, and we are currently trying a specialized formula. So yeah, that's the original post.
I don't even know how to add to that. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it's really tough.
And I'm definitely not an expert, so I don't want to like try commenting on something that I don't fully understand or have experienced yet.
I get that. Yeah, it's...
Or ever. I'll never be a mother. So I can never relate to that at all. It sounds like their situation's really hard with him working all the time and not having a support system. And it kind of seems like these issues are kind of just building upon themselves, kind of dominoing a little bit. Did they say, I don't think they did, like what the age gap was between kid number 1 and kid number 2?
They did not say, it sounds like they must be enough of an age gap that the firstborn is like helping like doting on the baby, so she must be at least slightly older by a decent amount. But yeah,
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, how big? It wasn't that big a difference between you and your brother, and like the videos definitely show you being obsessed with your baby brother.
That's true.
So I don't think they have to be very old.
But it could be like a 3 or 4 year age difference potentially. I don't know.
We don't know.
But yeah, I feel like, especially when they mentioned like this isn't uncommon for that to be an issue with being able to bond, and like she mentioned even in that post, like there could be other things at play, like postpartum depression, or having reflux or issues, or having a milk allergy. Like there's all sorts of things that could be causing this baby to just not be able to sleep and being super fussy. Like, and that would be really hard. Like I don't have a child myself yet, but like I can imagine if you're going off of little sleep and your tank is very low, and then you're trying to like bond with this baby and they're just screaming at you constantly, like that would be really tricky to try to bond with that and being willing to admit that, yeah, this kind of is the worst right now. Like I'm supposed to be excited and feeling happy with my newborn, and instead they're just screaming at me and I can't sleep. That would be so tricky. And so being willing to put that out there and be like, hey, I'm struggling. And it's one thing that, if you can go to a friend or a family member for support, but like she said, they don't have that right now. So, kind of putting it out there to the boy, because she doesn't want her husband to know that, because again, this is his first newborn. And so he would probably be really hurt to hear that like she's not bonding with the baby and doesn't really like the baby right now, you know?
I do think that she should talk to her husband. There's a way to phrase it that's not like, this baby is, it's not, I mean, the baby's not helping the situation with all these different factors and they're looking into them and stuff. I feel like it's more so about like the situation as a whole rather than necessarily it's about the baby.
Right.
The baby's a part of it and it's contributing, but it's not like I hate this baby and now you're gonna feel awful about it. I need help, or
this kid is screaming all the time.
I'm crumbling.
Crying.
Like I'm not sure, and I feel like there's maybe something to be said about like it's just kind of more idolizing maybe how she didn't have that issue. Maybe she had more of a support system the first time around. I don't know.
Right.
It's not to say that I was like peachy the first time, but this time it definitely sounds harder. So it kind of idolizes the first time, It can't be actually like, oh, I love the first kid more than the second kid, because there's not enough time to make that kind of like objective assessment.
It just sounds
it's just the experience is the experience around the kid is what's the issue, and that's something that could be discussed with your partner, as it should. I know time must be an issue because he's working 60 hours a week allegedly.
That's a lot. And with her then having to be the one constantly getting up because he can't be woken up so he can get enough sleep to work 60 hours, that's really tough. So going with that, we had some comments that I thought were really interesting. So someone said, I had postpartum depression with my last and final child. I couldn't bond. I felt ignored. A lot of what OP feels. He was colicky. He had to have constant motion to sleep, so there was some difficulty for him. I knew I wasn't feeling right. It took around a year before I felt like I had it under control. He's 8 now and the apple of my eye. I had a great physician, so thankfully she was able to recognize how I was feeling and she helped me to recover from it. OP, talk with someone you can be frank with, a professional. I can relate to your words so well. It just happens. It's not your fault and it's not a failure. Sometimes we just need extra help and your hormones are way out of whack right now. It's not easy to bounce back. To which another one said, Another commenter, other folks are offering really great advice around seeking medical support, and it sounds like you're already on that. So I just wanted to offer a narrative reframing. You have 2 children, one who clicks naturally with you and aligns with you. You vibe easily, and that's beautiful. But your second daughter might be the one to help you see things in new ways, offer a different approach, challenge you, bring fresh and outside perspectives. Of course, that will be clearer as she starts to get older, and it's totally fair that right now it feels deeply challenging. I wish you luck and resources of patience while you move through this phase. To which OOP responded, "Aw, I'm going to save this comment. That's such a wonderful way to think about it. It actually made me tear up a little. Thank you." Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
about these updates, I need to know that it gets better.
It does.
Okay, good.
There's a few updates. So here, well, actually, there's one update. Okay. Well, first of all, the judgment was not in the wrong here, like for feeling that way.
Was it that kind of post?
It was on True Off My Chest, but they had a judgment for some reason.
Heck? Guys, that's not how that thread works, I don't think. That's not the judgment one.
But anyways.
At least good to know that overall it was people being supportive, I guess.
Oh, yeah. It was a lot of people kind of relating and having issues, explaining different reasons why their kid was being so fussy and having issues like that. Like that one person mentioned being colicky and that being the reason why they were fussy, and trying to give advice of how to approach it with medical professionals to get it addressed. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff, which was really cool to see. Redditor kind of rallying around this person and not... I mean, of course, I think I didn't go through all the comments. I'm sure there were probably a few here and there that were like, well, you should love your kid no matter what, and like you should like them just as much as your first. I'm sure there was probably some of that because it's Reddit, but also like...
Those comments kind of speak to, the all things are perfect scenario.
Exactly. But a lot of the top comments that I was seeing were super, super supportive and just kind of like reiterating that it's important to let these feelings out and like address them instead of pretend like they're not there. Because if you try to pretend like everything's peachy keen and you're struggling and this continues, that's not good for anyone. Because then it's going to build resentment towards your kid under the surface, and you don't want that. So it's good to address it and figure out what's causing these things. And like this person did, like a narrative reframing in your mind of like, okay, maybe they don't align with me on everything. If that continues to be a thing, or they're just more spunky or more, you know what I mean, than you're used to. That kind of approach, if it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just different, and being willing to go into the relationship with your kid in that way. I thought that was really cool. So anyways, on to the update. So the update was 2 weeks later, and it says, about a month ago, I made a post about how much I didn't like my newborn. She was 8 weeks old. Well, a few days later, I took her back to the doctor. He put her on dairy-free formula, Alimentum, which smells like potato stroganoff. Ew. The changes started overnight, and the very next day I woke up and looked in her bassinet to see an awake baby giving me the biggest, cheesiest smile in the world. Since then, her personality has shown through drastically. It's honestly really fun to witness. My husband has also been an enormous help, reassuring, letting me sleep, helping every moment he can. He also went back down to a normal amount of hours at work to help me more. It's still rough. She still doesn't sleep fully through the night. I consider her being a little more of a firecracker to be part of her personality. She might never be as easy as her sister, but I wouldn't change her if I could. Her sister and her are night and day, totally different. But I can honestly say that I love it. I love having one angel and one fired up rebel. Having this little semen demon smiling at me really changed so much in my head. Even in the worst moments, I know she loves me and I just melt at her. She's got the most beautiful smile in the world, along with all of her hilarious angry faces.
Well, there you go. You just gotta look for the solution, It's baby's crying or anything like that, You can't just keep wishing for it to go away and then have it just go away. Like, you gotta ask the right people the right questions and look into the right things and try different things out and see what works. And it sounds like they found something, and it seems to me, at least for her, not necessarily not for the baby, but for OP, I feel like it's just sleep was the issue.
I know it's probably a big part of it. Yeah, when your tank is low in general, not having enough help.
Even without a kid, when you go on a stretch of having terrible sleep, it's not good.
No, it's exactly. Well, it's like that saying that like you got to fill your cup before you can fill others. Like. And as a mom, you kind of have to go off empty a lot. Like that's just what happens, unfortunately. But so it's okay to acknowledge that, hey, my cup is empty and I'm at my wit's end. Like, I don't know what to do here because my cup is empty and I don't have enough to give right now. and admitting that, because I think we kind of, again, we've talked about this in other episodes, we kind of live in a culture where it's like you don't want to admit when you're having weaknesses or when you're not having a positive mindset and you're really struggling with something. But it's really healthy too, I feel like. I mean, again, I'm not an expert or anything in this, but I feel like it's important to have at least some sort of person there that you can kind of lay out your feelings and stuff, no matter, even if you feel like if you feel like a bad person for feeling that way. It's okay to let it all out, and then that way you can approach it from a different perspective, because now you've let it all out. Now let's try to find a solution.
Don't suffer in silence.
Don't suffer in silence, kind of thing. So, and it was cool seeing as she didn't really know what support system she had, that Reddit was that support system in a way for her, that they came out and were like, hey, I can relate. Hey, you're not a bad mom. Hey, this happens more than you think. It's just cool to see that Reddit in this instance kind of rallied around her. So neat seeing the internet for good.
It's not all bad.
It's not all bad. All right, here we go. This next story comes from the subreddit Benign Existence, and the title is The Vet Said I Was Doing a Good Job. Here we go. So I adopted an overweight cat a couple of years ago, and he is my everything. He is obsessed with people, mostly me. I love it, and just loves being around people. This whole time, I've been trying to get him down to a healthy weight so he can live as long and comfortably as possible. So last week, I had to take him to the vet for his yearly shots and checkup. We saw that he'd gone from 23 pounds to just under 19 pounds. The vet told me I was doing great and that he wished all cats were like him when they got their shots. He didn't even notice. He was entranced by the vet tech giving him treats.
There you go.
After that, they stepped out for something, leaving me alone with my chunky little support system, and I cried. Sobbed, really. This whole time, I've been so stressed and feeling like I failed him because I couldn't get his weight down. Apparently, I was. I just didn't notice. Anyways, just thought I'd share that you don't always see how good you're doing until someone says it. TLDR, my fat cat is less fat now, and I am very proud of him.
Well, we can relate to that with little Gimli over there, who
we have a little
struggle
Shih Tzu.
with weight sometimes.
A little Shih Tzu that is very food motivated.
Yeah. Well, it didn't help that we had his Legolas, our other dog, is not very food motivated, or wasn't at the time, or at least didn't love his food. And so Gimli would also take some of his food sometimes because Legolas wouldn't eat it all.
Our big dog would walk away, and then our little Shih Tzu would try to steal it. And what was funny is we tried everything. We're like, well, he's short. The Shih Tzu's short, so let's put the bigger dog's food up, raised, so he can't get to it. Well, then we came out to find him around the corner, literally hanging from the food bowl with his butt in the air as he's climbing into the bowl to eat it. And we're like, no, this isn't what we wanted.
No, he figured out and found a way.
He would always find a way.
We just had to switch up the food and find the right food that Legolas actually likes and stuff. And now Gimli eats the food he's supposed to be eating and stuff.
Now the Shih Tzu has gone down to a more healthy weight and has stayed there for a while. But it was a long time of feeling like we were failing him because we tried so many things to try to get him to not steal food somehow, including, I won't get into it. But it was a long process.
Point is that we relate. And
so seeing that, it's one of those things that as a puppy parent, as a parent in general with kids, there's going to be areas where we feel like, oh, I'm failing at this, or I'm not doing as good as I could. But, as long as you're making efforts, that's what matters at the end of the day. And it really shouldn't take a stranger being like, you're doing a good job to make ourselves feel like we're trying, we're doing well. But sometimes we're really, again, it's hard to see that in ourselves, that we're doing our best. And that's
there's always that fear of getting judgment from the vet, you are doing a bad job, or there's that fear of affirming your worries and concerns, or it's like when you go into the doctor for yourself and you're like, and they're like, oh, they guys point out how I've gained some weight or something, or they're like, have you been doing this better? No, it doesn't look like it. Those fears go through your heads, the fear of judgment.
Exactly.
Or I think partially it's also the fear of affirming your own judgment,
100%.
The fear of it being confirmed.
Yep, 100%. Again, having compassion with ourselves, and life is busy, life is hard. As long as you're trying your best, that's what matters. Not everything is going to magically get better overnight. You're not always going to hit your goals when you plan to. It's just part of life. But as long as you're giving it your best, that's what matters. So I think that was a good example of that.
Do you know that we're talking about you, Lego? Legolas has approached us, the Samoyed.
All right, here is another story. Again, this one isn't overtly positive to begin with. It has a happy ending, though. All right, here we go. Am I in the wrong for telling my mom it wasn't cute or funny to dress me as a hot dog instead of a princess? Here we go.
Sure, it was funny to somebody, but I guess not to them. It's not a good joke if the person that's the subject doesn't find it funny.
No. So here we go. So there's this new Target commercial going around where a little girl dresses up as a hot dog, and it came on while my family was watching a scary movie. I, 20 female, am home from college for the weekend and brought my boyfriend, and my mother, 57 female, decided it would be hilarious to mention that she'd made me a hot dog costume as a kid. Except the way she told the story, it was my request. She said that all the girls wanted to be Disney princesses, but I had asked to be a hot dog, and so she got out of her way to make me that costume. That is not what happened, and I said as much. What actually happened is that I wanted to be Snow White and had told everyone, including the teachers, that I was going to be Snow White. I was obsessed with that movie as a kid, to the point where I would actually get invested in doing chores because I was cleaning up just like Snow White. My dad and I would watch that movie all the time, and I was very excited to be Snow White for Halloween, especially because my ballet studio was doing a special princess dance for Halloween, and we'd all signed up for special princess slots. And I'd shown up early with my dad the week before so I could get to be Snow White. My mother decided that she wanted to be quirky and that Snow White was a bad role model after I got in trouble for trying to cook dinner for my family. I was about 8, and I tried to make hot dogs like how she made food for the dwarves in the movie, and I made a mess. My mom surprised me on the day of with this crappy hot dog suit and told me if I didn't wear it, she'd never let me watch Snow White again. She took a million pictures, the other girls teased me for months, and it was one of the most humiliating moments of my childhood. I told the real story and mentioned that I got through the day by pretending that she was the evil queen making me dress in rags, but the rags happened to be the garbage meat costume. She got really quiet after that, and after we left, my brother says she was crying and looking at the pictures from that Halloween. I didn't want to make my mom cry, but it's a crappy memory for me, and it felt like she was trying to humiliate me all over again in front of my boyfriend. Some comments, follow-up comments before we talk about this. She said, OOP said, in my mom's version, I hated the other girls in town as much as she hated the other women and wanted to be a weird kid because she wanted to be a weird mom who doesn't like housework or makeup or dresses. I learned makeup from a friend's mom, and I learned basic house skills from YouTube, and I never had clothes I actually liked unless I asked her non-relatives for them for Christmas or my birthday. And then she said, it was honestly one of the worst memories of my childhood, which I'm well aware means I had a pretty good childhood overall. It just still makes me feel like I was this gross, waddling thing that can never be pretty or delicate or worthy when I think about it. Like I'm just gross and forced to watch everyone else be special and lovely. So, yeah.
Definitely a lot of projecting your own views and desires upon your kid when they don't necessarily feel that way or agree.
Right. Like it says here too that apparently her mom hated Snow White. She liked other princesses like Belle, Mulan, and Merida because she I don't know, it just kind of sounds like she wanted the princesses that were more like go out and do the thing yourself kind of thing versus like she thought Snow White was kind of a bad role model, I guess. But still, yeah.
I mean, there's worse role models. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, so anyways, that's the story. Like I said, it starts out pretty rough, but again, it has a happy ending, I promise. But yeah, so
I don't know.
To start off, yeah.
This feels a little bit like, you know, I know sometimes Disney gets a bad rap. Sometimes, you know, it's a little controversial sometimes with like, oh, how... In the case of princesses, like how good of role models they are and stuff. But I don't know, it's like, is it much different than your kid being like, I want to be a wizard, I love Harry Potter, and you're like, wizards are stupid, you're gonna be this instead,
right?
You know, like
yeah.
It's. I mean, I have my own views and things on certain properties and stuff. Like I don't love everything under the sun that's out there, but if my kid's like, I want to be this, like I'm not gonna be like, that's stupid,
right?
You know, like nope, you're gonna be a hot dog instead,
yeah.
or something weird and quirky. You know, like I mean that's. You do you, Mom.
Well, especially
because
it was a princess dance at their ballet studio, and she showed up in a hot dog costume the day of. That's what her mom made her wear. Yeah,
I forgot that detail.
Yeah, that's
so
really
that's
rough.
Not just Halloween.
No,
that's like okay. That's now we're getting to a whole different conversation where that's like, you know, you're told to come. It's like a formal black tie event, and you come wearing like cut up jeans or something.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
That's not what the dress code is.
Right. It made her feel embarrassed. And so, yeah, again, this is a really rough story and stuff. And it always on Best of Redditor updates from what I've seen, it always has like a mood spoiler. And so this was a happy ending. And I was like, okay, buckle up, I guess, and I'll read through all this. This seems pretty rough. But again, it has a happy ending. And the reason why I put it with this theme is sometimes people in our lives do things that hurt us. And I think it's important to be compassionate to ourselves and actually call them on that if someone is painting the past as something that it wasn't, when it really actually hurt you and they are making it sound like it was a positive thing. I think being compassionate to ourselves is letting them know that that wasn't how that was for them. Like maybe they thought it was funny and quirky, but that was hurtful, like it's standing up for yourself, because if you don't, you're just going to brood resentment in yourself too.
Yeah. Now I would, because I know OP had said that they thought that their mom was purposely trying to embarrass them. I don't necessarily think that was the case. It was probably that's what the mom maybe convinced herself was the case, because how else do you justify that? And then like, oh, my kid wanted that. That's what she actually wanted deep down.
Right.
And like after, something like decades later, convinced themselves of that.
Right. And like, it sounds like, she broke down and cried. So maybe in that moment she was like, oh, I maybe reframed that in my own mind, and realizing that, oh, maybe I was in the wrong and I hurt my kid. Like, we're not perfect. We all sometimes do things that, maybe weren't the right thing to do and stuff. And so this update is a good example of moving forward from that. All right, so here is the update. Hi everyone, this was 6 months later. First off, I wanted to give a big thank you to all of the people who reached out with kindness back in October. I was struggling a lot with whether I'd done the right thing, and getting such an overwhelming consensus definitely helped me feel better. There wasn't actually that much fallout from the whole situation, and I kind of forgot about it for a few months. My mom was a little awkward the next few times we saw each other, but that was all back to normal by Christmas. It didn't destroy our relationship, and I realized that a lot of my fears were just anxiety and overthinking clouding my mind. My brother made a few snide remarks, but I didn't get or give an apology, and I figured that was that. However, last weekend, my mom picked me up from work and took me to her place, saying she had a surprise for me and I should shower and do my hair fancy. She had all the nicest skincare and hair stuff laid out, which means a lot because she's never been into that stuff. And when I was done, she surprised me with the most gorgeous Snow White dress I've ever seen. It is genuinely stunning quality, and I couldn't believe it was actually for me. She was all dressed up as the Wicked Queen too, with the cowl and everything, and she took me to see the new Snow White movie together. When I tell you...
Probably because it's got more empowerment version of Snow White. It's like, I approve of this one.
When I tell you I almost cried, I'm not exaggerating. It was one of the best days I've ever had with her, and I felt like a legit princess. When little girls came up and asked for pictures, I swear I've never enjoyed anything that much. I might actually try and get a job as a party princess if I can swing it, just because of how great the experience was. After the movie, which by the way is better than most people are saying, I hated the new love interest, but Rachel killed it. She apologized for not taking my feelings into consideration when I was younger, and explained that she has always wanted me to feel like I could be anybody I wanted to be and didn't have to conform. But what she did ended up being a form of formed confirmation itself, and if I wanted to be a princess, she's going to do her best to help me feel like the best princess in the world. She did explain that the hot dog costume wasn't meant to be a punishment. She honestly thought I'd think it was funny, but that she would have never gone so far without making sure I liked it, and she didn't actually ever intend to take Snow White away. I believe this. She seemed truly apologetic, and I told her that she is 200% forgiven. So things are good. I'm glad I spoke up when I did, and I think my mom and I are going to be closer now, honestly. She's a good person, and I'm really grateful to have a mother like her. Thank you.
Well, that's a good bonding moment. So that's why, again, I have the reasons why you should be honest and,
if something hurt
speak your childhood trauma and address it, And
it's not always gonna end with this fairy tale ending like this did, but it does help. I feel like from my experiences with stuff, like when you have a bad thing happen, it helps when you address it. Because if you don't, it's just gonna, keep getting worse in your own mind and stuff. So like, I think it's always important to be willing to speak up. If someone says something and it hurts you, let them know. Maybe they won't respond well, but at least then you stood up for yourself. You were your own kind of hero in that moment, It just feels good to be your own spokesperson.
And I'm glad they enjoyed the movie together.
Yeah.
I know it's not the most popular opinion on the internet right now, but guess what? Life's too short. Enjoy what you enjoy, and doesn't matter what you don't enjoy. Don't watch it. It's not for you then, you know?
Exactly.
It's not for me. I don't necessarily want to watch it, but like, I'm glad they enjoyed it.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah.
It's a beautiful bonding moment for them.
What a really cool idea though. Getting her the Snow White dress as an adult. That was cute.
Yeah, no, that's sweet.
I think it is funny that she went the extra step to also get an evil stepmother costume for herself.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's kind of funny.
I like the self-roast.
Yeah, exactly.
Like self-roast.
Yeah, so it was a good story. All right, so this next story is from Best of Redditor Updates, and it is titled, Am I in the Wrong for Refusing to Pick Up My Coworker? And this was originally posted on Am I in the Wrong? Here we go. I, 30 male, drive to work, which is located in a somewhat rural area with no public transport. Everyone else at work drives too. Recently, a coworker in my department, 30 plus male, told me his car broke down and he asked me a favor to pick him up for work. The thing is, he lives in a different town from me, which means I will have to detour and add another 30 minutes to my commute.
Oof.
He doesn't want to get Uber as it will be costly. I told him to get a bus from his town to mine and I'll pick him up from the station on the way to work. It'll only add an extra 5 minutes to my commute. He refused as he will have to get ready very early. The bus trip will take about 20 minutes. So I said no, I can't pick him up, and he got mad and called me, said I was in the wrong. I do feel really bad because Uber will be expensive, but I don't feel like waking up early and adding to my commute just to drive him. We do work closely as a team though, so I'm afraid this will make me look petty. Am I in the wrong?
2 questions.
Yes.
1, can no one else pick him up? If it's
Right?
an extra half-hour commute?
Yeah.
It's not like they live near each other.
Right.
And secondly, it's not a request if you then get mad and angry
Exactly.
and say
Call someone names.
you're a bad person or for
Yeah.
for saying no, then it's not
Right.
a request then.
Exactly.
I don't know.
And like this person's setting a boundary. They're saying like, hey, I'm willing to do this. That's within my comfort zone of doing this. And like, you just have to take a bus to here and then I'll drive you. But like, if you're not willing to meet them halfway, I mean, they already are being generous by saying they'd add an extra 5 minutes to come pick you up. Like, that's still very nice. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. Should we get to the update?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. A couple of weeks ago, I posted asking if I was in the wrong for not picking up my coworker to go to work. I was torn because I've worked with him for 3 years without any issues, and it was the first disagreement that we had. So thanks everyone who said I'm not in the wrong and put my mind at ease. On to the update. After our uncomfortable conversation, I went to a training program in another state, so I didn't see him until the next Monday. I drove to work as usual, and he also came in by Uber. I found out later. We didn't speak until lunch when, to my surprise, he apologized to me. He said that he was stressed about fixing his car, he had to replace the radiator and wait for the part, and having to spend more money on the rides. He admitted that he has never taken the bus. He moved to the city 3 years ago for the job and never had to use public transport since he has always had a car. So he was feeling anxious and took it out on me, I guess. He said that I didn't deserve it and I accepted his apology. So he still Ubers to work since he doesn't want to get up early, but I offered to send him to the bus station near my place after work and he can take an Uber home from there. It's easier to get a ride at the station instead of from our work. He graciously accepted and offered to chip in for gas, but I said it's fine since we'll be going the same way. So he bought me lunch instead. I ended up sending him for 3 days and then he got his car back. Some people might say I shouldn't offer to help him, but it wasn't a bother to me, and who knows if one day I might be in this position. Our working relationship is stronger now, and I'm glad we could both move forward in a better place. That's my update. Have a great day.
Yeah, I feel like help where you can, and then have boundaries where it may be too much or too overwhelming.
Right, yeah, because you don't want to push yourself too far outside your comfortability. It's always nice to help others, but if it's going to really severely impact you in a way that you're like, I know that's going to be really tough on me, or like for what X, Y, or Z reason, they didn't really say why necessarily, but for whatever reason, they really just didn't want to have to do that before work for 2 weeks. And
well,
so
half hour is a long time, especially because that's just picking
to
them
go
up.
get them. Yeah.
So it's going to be an hour a day extra.
Right. And if you're, have a busy life and stuff, that's a lot. And so it's okay to have boundaries. Be kind to yourself. You don't always have to say yes to people just to be a good person. Like, that's important too, because you don't want to stretch yourself too thin either. Because that's when people start walking on you and like taking advantage of you, and you don't want that either. You want to, when you're doing something nice for somebody, it wants to be out of a good place, not out of an obligation place or a fear of them being upset with you. Again, kudos to this person that they recognized that they were being stressy about the situation and taking it out on them and calling them that name and being rude, and that they came out and apologized and told them they didn't deserve that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And also bought them lunch. So nice, happy ending all the way around.
There you go. They must listen to our Admitting When You're Wrong episode.
On to our news article for today. So today's news article comes from today.com, and it is titled, "An 81-year-old waitress said she couldn't retire, so a stranger raised over $300K for her."
Okay.
Yeah. So a woman named Tammy was going to a local restaurant, and she uses TikTok and stuff. She went to a restaurant called Eaton Park, where she noticed a friendly server named Betty, who was 81 years old, that was struggling to kind of get around the restaurant and stuff. She was, Betty, apparently she was suffering from chronic back pain, but she needed this job because her Social Security money wasn't enough to cover the bills for her bad back. And so she was continuing. She was basically saying, I'm going to have to keep working till I don't even know how long to be able to afford the medical bills and stuff. So Tammy, the person in the restaurant, overheard her saying this and decided to make a TikTok about what was going on. And her hope was that the video would go viral to then have any proceeds from the Creator Rewards program go towards helping Betty out. She gave her $40 in her purse from what she had to give it to her. And then, which already the woman that was having the bad back issues, Betty, said, "I worked all my life as a waitress and I can't retire. I'm 81, but I can still outdo all these whippersnappers." Tammy went home, posted this video. Her thing went viral on TikTok within just 24 hours. And she had a ton of comments asking to donate, so she ended up putting together a GoFundMe. Not very long after that, it raised $110,000 and then an additional $3,200 in Venmo donations for her. And it kept going up and up.
Wow.
To which Betty was like, I think I better get a financial advisor.
Yeah.
And then finally on April 2nd, when she brought her the proceeds from the GoFundMe, it was a whopping $328,739.18.
Hopefully she can retire now.
Yeah. So, and then Tammy said, "She's a sweet, deserving woman. I'm so glad that we were put in this place at a certain time and we raised this money for her to enjoy the rest of her life." So, yeah, really awesome. I mean, again, like, we've had so many stories of GoFundMes that raise like crazy amounts of money for people and really like change their lives. There was one recently we did about a delivery driver delivering pizzas in the snowstorm, and they raised like a crazy amount of money for them as like you doing a good job despite, crappy situations. This one's pretty wild, but yeah, really, really, really cool. It just goes to show the small things we do can have huge, huge impacts. So yeah, and with that, we will end today's podcast episode. Tune in next week for our next episode, which is all about giving kudos and appreciation to others. So giving others kudos and recognition.
And maybe yourself too. We'll add that in there.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with this one. Let other people know they're doing a good job. Because sometimes we're, like we said in this episode, it's hard to give that to ourselves. So let's be doing it for others. So we'll have some good stories of that. If you have a positive story that you would like to share, we have a subreddit, which is Uplift Positive Stories. Or you can share them with us on our upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com email. And yeah.
And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment.
That'd be awesome. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us next week.
And stay positive.